that you forgot. I said I can't forget through the emptiness I feel when you're gone. It's not the words to the song, it's how I feel you in the beat, how our heartstrings ring out loud in harmony. And sometimes late at night I converse with the moon. He tells me about the sun and I tell him about you. And when we talk about forever, it seems too short, too soon. And all the great loves we remember had a storm to get through. Ooh.
When I started wondering if I could have it all, when putting my heart on the line, well, I set my intention on everything I wanted. The picture was so clear in my mind. But part of me still did not believe that my every wish would come true. And as I thought it out, I loved away my doubts and had a new breakthrough. And I know the sun's gonna shine, and the rain's gonna come, and the wind's gonna rush, and the time just keeps on. And love's here to stay, an infectious guarantee. 'Cause I fell in love with me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. One thing was certain, I knew I would never choose to settle for anything less.
Life is good. Yes or yes?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
No matter what? Okay, I'm going to hold you to this. See where I'm going with this? I roll you in the beginning, I make you answer a question, and then later I pop a new question on you. You're like, oh, got me. No, I'm delighted to be here today. I've been on an amazingly intense journey in spiritual and personal growth and development. And I know you all thought that I was this close to walking on water, and so I don't want to dispel any myths. I'm even closer now. But the thing is, in order to walk on water, you have to release some of the baggage. Weighs you down. So, no, I've just been really blessed to be investing in my own ongoing learning, because I find that that's what it takes. You know, it'd be lovely. Wouldn't it be lovely if you just got it once and then you were done? And you just lived the rest of your life from that point. You'd be like, amen, I hear you. Different planet, apparently, where that happens. So on this planet, we get to keep growing. We get to keep evolving. We get to keep changing. We call it spiritual practice for a reason. It implies that you do it more than once. We do not call it spiritual perfection, we call it spiritual practice, recognizing that we are all divine beings in origin. See that how powerful that is? To recognize and know that you are spiritual in nature and you have a physical form. See, there's a lot of people out there that think they're a physical body that occasionally has a spiritual experience. And I'm going to suggest to you that most people have it wrong. But us enlightened folk in the room know we are spiritual beings having human experience, and so how joyful and wonderful it is to be having this experience. Now, I was reminded, our theme this month is spiritual guidance and personal responsibility. Isn't that a lovely thing? And so when we look at this idea of spiritual guidance, what I know is many of us are more trained to listen to our ego than we are to listen to the gentle promptings of spirit. Yes or yes? Yes. Most of us are more experienced in listening to our ego than to listening to spirit. In fact, some of us even listen to ourselves until that just no longer works and we're forced to our knees in prayer and then we go, okay, I give up. Now I'll listen. So spiritual guidance requires us to do our inner work so that we can distinguish the voice of spirit from the voice of our ego. Here's how I know. If it sounds like me, it's my ego. If it's frantic and frenetic and freaked out, it's my ego. There's a whole other list of things. But I know the gentle promptings of spirit that puts forth a larger vision of possibility, and the voice of ego that always says, what makes you think you can do something like that? Do you know that voice? Have you heard that? Okay. I know you all have voices in your head. Don't try and fool me. We all do. So the first requirement of spiritual growth and development, we all know, is what? Accepting responsibility for our life. Breathe. Don't shut down on me yet. We're going to get through this together. I promise you I will guide you to the end of this journey. But the first step is accepting personal responsibility. Now, how many of you heard that as blame or fault-finding? What's wrong with me that I created this in my life? Not what we're talking about. There is a difference, and it is huge, between responsibility, the ability to respond, and fault. Now, we live in a world that is very conditioned to find fault. If you listen to any newscast for more than about 2 minutes, they're going to tell you what the problem is, and then they start to imply who's to blame. Much of our current level of problem solving is based on who's to blame, whose fault is it. If those darn Democrats would stop being whatever, and if those darn conservatives would stop being, and if those tall people would stop being tall, and if the short people would stop being short, and if the fat people would just stop being fat, life would be better. So stop it. If you're any of those categories, and if you're not, I can go on all day long, right? Stop it. You're messing with my peace and tranquility. Because, right, that's the mindset. If life changes around me, then I can have an experience of my divinity. If I had more money, then I could have an experience of abundance. If you would stop being in conflict, I could have an experience of peace. If my kids would just get it, I could be an enlightened parent. Can we do this all day long? I'll get to all of you before we're through, because we all have our if-then statement. But what spiritual progress teaches us is that we have a capacity to respond to our lives. And so we can begin to live from a more vision-centered place. I come back to the awareness time and time again that the entirety of my life, that every aspect of it, I was there. I was the common denominator. You may find this to be true for you. Is there any part of your life that you weren't there for? So perhaps you had some part of it. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Okay. So if we just accept that as our basic premise, we can move forward. If we can't accept that, we stay stuck. You choose. Someone once said, our best thinking got us here. So perhaps what we want to do is engage in a different level of thinking. So here's what I realize. Who we are in terms of consciousness. We're like an iceberg, right? And we all know that in an iceberg you can see what is above the surface. But the great bulk of an iceberg is underneath the surface. So from our iceberg point of view in life, it is where we make choices and decisions and actions and behavior. All come from that above ground. But what's underneath the surface is the subconscious, where we hold our beliefs, our values, our purpose, our conditioning, or some people call it our imprinting. You see, our subconscious has absorbed an understanding of reality. And most of that happened, here's the real rub, most of that happened between 0 and 7 years old. I know. So the question I ask is, do you really want a 6-year-old making your decisions for you? When it's perfectly appropriate to throw yourself on the floor and kick your feet and cry and threaten to hold your breath when you're 5. Some of us are not 5 anymore, and it becomes less appropriate to throw yourself on the floor and kick your feet and hold your breath. But yet, some of us are responding to life that way. So here's the good news. Ready for some good news? Or you just want to leave it at you're a mess and sorry about that? Thought you'd want to know. Have a great life. The good news is that we can change that. You see, the basis of science of mind is not that you get to learn 5 simple steps to do an affirmative prayer. The basis of science of mind is not that you get to take one class and have everything be different. The basis of science of mind says that if you can change your consciousness, your thinking, believing nature, you can change your life. That's good news. It will, however, require some work. And so I honor you. First of all, let me just honor you for being in the room and having done whatever level of work you've done. You wouldn't be in this room if you hadn't done some level of work. So congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Go ahead. Take a moment. My other gift, though, is you're not all done. I know. Some of us have been at this for a while. Oh, my God. So can I just talk to you for a moment? So it occurred to me that, I started this work about 31 years ago. And so ever since I started, I've saved all these great gems of information. Workshops I've taken, classes I've taught, things I created, School of Ministry, all of this stuff, great workshops, other things. And so I realized I have 2 file folders, 2 file cabinets, 4-drawer, full of stuff, boxes of stuff in the closet, and other stuff on shelves. And any other hoarders in the room? Just want to check, right? Because you're going to need that someday. You just know. Someday, somebody's going to ask you something. So I realized, man, this is a great workshop, self-esteem. And how brilliant was I? I even saved the floppy disk. Yeah. Good thinking. For you youngsters in the room, we used to put information and take it out of the computer on a little thing called floppy. It wasn't floppy at all, but that's what we called it. Am I alone here? How many of you have closets that are full of stuff? How many of you have garages that are full of stuff? How many of you have a life that is full of stuff? So that's why I say it turns out if you're going to walk on water, you got to let go of some of this stuff. It's hard to walk on water with 2 file cabinets full of stuff. So it's just been a really interesting exercise. Now, there's still some good stuff, and actually some of it's calling through, like that could be a great chapter. That could be a great thing, you know. But it's like, not all of it. And it's a wonderful process to go through and just be cleansing and clearing and letting go. And it represents outwardly part of what's happening internally. That it's time to let go of some stuff. You see, here's how our subconscious works. These wonderful beliefs, values, and conditioning that we receive from 0 to 7 define how we perceive reality. Is it safe? Not safe. Am I okay or am I not okay? If we have shame around that, if we somehow got the misrepresentation that we were somehow bad and wrong, then some of us developed a persona of what we thought the world wanted us to be to show up in the world. And we thought, oh my God, the worst thing I could ever do is just be vulnerable and let people see that inner me that's afraid and fearful. So I'll put on a really good act. And I'll act happy when I'm sad. I'll act calm when I'm mad. I'll act empowered when I'm feeling victimized. So it's a powerful and wonderful thing to recognize that the work is about going into the shadow, that which we have not been willing, and just be vulnerable. Now, you want to do that in appropriate settings. That's part of the value and the beauty of this spiritual community is we have systems and structures in which we can have that deeper level of conversation. So as I said, the classes are not about 5-step treatments and what Ernest Holmes said 90 freaking years ago. Although we have that in there. It's really about being willing to take that deeper look to say, does this still serve me? You see, in letting go of all my old files, I realize I have some internal files. Some of them are on floppy disk. Some of them have no relevance for my life today, but you know, I hang on to them, I keep them around. Am I alone here? Okay, just checking. I thought I'd be a little too vulnerable there for a moment. So the question we have to ask ourselves, am I more committed to looking good or to having the life I want? Because one of the things we do is we say, I already know that. How many of you before today knew that a lot of your life lived in a subconscious mind? Every one of you. I know that was not a divine revelation, that it was not the 11th commandment. We know that. We know spiritual principle. Most of us have read countless. Oh my God, should we even talk about books right now? It's a sickness. We should have, that's the group we should have. If we're going to have a 12-step program, that's the group we should have. But here's what happens. Here's how our minds work. When we have a situation, you see, here's what's amazing about our minds. The amazing part of our subconscious mind is that we are exposed to 20 million bits of information in every second. It's a lot of information. And if you just let all that come in, your head would explode. Boom. So the subconscious mind says, aha, I've got to figure out a strategy to deal with all of this incoming. And so it distorts and it discards and it pushes away a certain amount of information and allows information in. However, what the information that allows in is in relationship to our already formed belief. Life is hard. Let me allow information that supports that belief come in to reinforce my belief and then expand my experience. And then not only do I have a belief, but I have data. I have a lifetime of evidence. Sure, you have a belief, but I've got evidence. Good on you. I put it on floppy disk, then I put it on the small little floppy disk, then I had hard drive. I have all of this stuff. But the real question becomes, what's the underlying belief? What do I truly believe to be true? So we say every Sunday that the entire universe, this divine intelligence, is standing behind you, is expressing itself through you. You go, that's nice. That was a lovely sermon, Marty. Thank you. And some of us then go right back into the world and act like we're victims. Am I really again? Am I the only one again? Oh, okay, just checking. Just like to make sure I haven't lost the audience here. Got the wrong audience, right? So we have this belief, or we have this perceived belief. We have this thing we say we believe, and then we have the real belief that lives in the subconscious. But here's how life works. So when we are faced with something, our subconscious mind goes back to what we know, interprets new information in accordance with what we know, and then projects that forward into the future. And the crazy part is it expects a different result. Is that crazy? Yes. Do we do it? Yes, of course we do. So this is where it becomes necessary both to do that deeper work, to just look at how we form. There's no bad people. I want you to hear this. There's no blame, no shame. We just lived life according to the way we knew how to live it in that moment. But some of us aren't 6 or 7 anymore. So we have to reinterpret, we have to restructure, we have to do that deeper inner level of work. And then, more importantly, we have to create the vision of the life we want. The vision of the life we want. And begin to accept that vision as if it were so now. This crazy subconscious mind of ours does not know the difference between perceived reality and reality. In truth, it's all perceived reality. And so when we can imagine and vision that perfected life and own it and accept it and clear out the limiting beliefs that say you don't deserve or shouldn't have or it's arrogant or whatever your particular limiting belief is, then our mind says, aha, look at all this data. I'm going to filter through it to find the information that creates wealth in my life, that creates joy in my life. When I see the person who would not support my best life, I will move on rather than give them my card. If that's your old pattern. Isn't that exciting? So when people say, it's crazy, whatever I do turns into money. It's wild. Do you know people like that? That no matter what they do, they make money. You go, how does that work? How do you get in that universe? It's just a belief. They're not better than you. They just have a different belief. So how exciting is this? We can change our lives if we change our thinking, which is to say, if we can change our consciousness. We have to let go of an idea that there's a power rewarding and punishing. This infinite universal intelligence is available to all, seeking its highest self-expression as it is allowed to do so. But our responsibility is to clear out those beliefs that no longer serve us, to readjust the values, to look at that conditioning and imprinting and begin conditioning and imprinting ourselves. Here's the good news. I'm going to tell you some more news. You ready for some more news? Yeah. You sure? Yeah. You're not going to like it. Want to reconsider? You want to renegotiate for a minute? It's not your parents' fault. Told you weren't going to like this. Now, your parents may have been horrible, and you made a decision about who you are in the context of their horribleness. Your parents may have been amazing, and you made a decision about who you are in that context. Now, it wasn't a conscious decision. So no 6-year-old goes, let me analyze this for a moment and see what I choose to believe and what I do. But somewhere you said, oh my God, I'm not worthy. Let me use that as my filter. See, this is the responsibility versus blame. So I'm sorry if you had a less than perfect childhood. I'm sorry if you are like 99% of the people that had a dysfunctional family. I'm sorry if you experienced shame. I'm sorry. But sorry won't get us to the next level, will it? So to be empowered, we say, it happened. I made a choice. Am I ready to make a new choice? So here's what I know. We have to decide whether we're committed to looking good or creating change. Because in the change, very often, here's the thing, here's what I know. I can come right up to the edge here. The life you want's right here. Right here. And you're here. Like, well, I'm just going to come back here and make it come to me. Oh, shanti, shanti, right? You know I webcam every one of your houses, right? I watch you. Now, I'm saying all of this because we're going to have a little presentation in a minute from our leadership council. It will freak some of you out, and it will inspire others. Isn't that amazing? Be the same presentation for everyone. But some of us will filter it through, oh my God. And others will say, yippee. You see, what I'm realizing, the realization I had is life is different. Life is different today than it was a year ago. Life is different today than it was 5 years ago. And life is certainly different than it was 30 years ago. And yet, as I look through my notes of how to do ministry, much of it looks the same. Sometimes we upgrade the terminology. You ever done that? You can say, well, God doesn't want me to have this, but no, now you're enlightened. You go, well, the universe doesn't want me to have this. Whew, total upgrade. So I'm calling it Spiritually Free 2.0. Right? Because our conditions are different. And so the question we can ask ourselves is, oh my God, it's awful, it's horrible. Or we can just say, hey, this is the new reality. What are we being called to do differently? Anybody face that in your own life? See, for 25 years and 5 years prior to that, I have done ministry. Most of it have been in the pulpit, talking to groups like this. Do you think I know how to do that? Think I'm any good at it? Some of you even tell me that. What do you think's more comfortable for me? Staying and doing that. But oh, no. Spirit's like, no. You know why Spirit's doing that? Because when it was doing this, I didn't listen. Do you know this? This is the root. It's like, how do I have to crank up the volume? So now Spirit's pushing me. So I've been doing this intense work, and I just clarified my mission. Want to hear it? Yes. Sure? Yes. I am committed to seeing 1 million people who have suffered from living their little lives instead live boldly and fully give their gifts to the world. Do you think doing it for 1 million people is different from doing it from 200. Yeah. Somehow the vehicle has to be different. So Spirit says, thank you. You've done 25 years. You get your trophy. I got a trophy. Yippee. And now take your next step. While part of that's comfortable for me to stay here and continue to do, then I get to be a sham and say, go live your dream. I'll be over here in my little comfort zone doing what I've done and know how to do, but I want you to go live your dream. Anybody see a problem? Yeah. So this spiritual integrity thing is just a piece of work. It will mess with you. It will call you forward into the unknown, into the yet to be, into what is seeking, what you're seeking. Now, here's what I also know. Center for Spiritual Living, Salt Lake, is going through changes. How dare it? Way to go. Way to evolve in a changing world. We're supposed to stay the same. So, in a minute, the Leadership Council is going to present to you where we are, where we're going, how we're strategizing, the new strategy we're creating to deal with the current reality. Does that make sense? Sure? Wouldn't you rather them just deal with the old strategy? Not working. Here's how you know it's time to change your strategy. It's not working. Am I the only one that just doubles down? That didn't work. Let me run at the wall harder. I'll blast through it. Turns out it's a pretty thick wall. Oh, look, there's a door. Maybe I'll try that. So I want you just to hear this. We're being faced with a challenge. Does that ever happen? Here's the other thing that 25 years of ministerial experiences does. You're not the first ones. This is not the first time this has ever happened. So we deal with it. And I think it's exciting. Here's what I'm committed to. I want you to know that. I want you to hear this from the bottom of my heart. I am committed to the well-being of this community. Well, you wouldn't leave us if you were committed to well-being. I know somebody's going to say it. I'm just going to get it out of the way. And I know part of the well-being of this community is me following my vision and dream. Sure. Can I have a vulnerable moment with you? Because part of my old pattern of doing life is in order for me to make change, I have to get mad at what is. Which would be you, in case there is any doubt in your mind. Is it helpful to know that? Because then if I get upset, where do I look? At me. My old pattern. Go, see, you almost did that. Right? See, I changed a job because I get mad. I'm going to use that word. Mad at the old employer. Oh, you know, right? Make a whole story, and then it was okay for me to make a change. Somewhere along the line, I went, I could just make a change. I could just save that whole internal dialogue, the stress, the whatever else, and just say, this is what's next. So as a community, I'm inviting you. See, how much do you love me that I'm going to push every available button for you over the next 2 months? You're welcome. So, yes, tell the joke. Some of you have heard this before, but it's a great lesson in how we approach life. You see, because we make up these stories. This is what I'm doing. If we haven't looked at the undercurrent, we make up stories. We make up excuses. So this farmer goes to his next door neighbor, and he says, hey, can I borrow your axe? The farmer says, no, I'm sorry. My donkey is sick. First farmer says, what do you mean your donkey's sick? What does that have to do with you letting me borrow your axe? Farmer says, hey, if I don't want to lend you my axe, one story's as good as another. what story are you making up? Because even if you're gifted in your storytelling ability, it's just as good as any other. So collectively, we get to tell a story. And we can see what's happening as the end of the world. It's the end of the known world. We go, life's different. Let's adjust and adapt. Here's the good news I always come back to, because I have done this for how long? 25 years. I told somebody I'm going to start a drinking game that every time, sorry for you AA people, but every time I say 25 years, we all get to take a shot and call it good, right? It's even annoying me, I say it so much. So, but I know, because I know the power of the collective, that together we can do anything. Together we've done everything we've done for the first 50 years. Created this building, all of that. It's just we have to adapt and be different. So I'm going to invite you in a little bit, right after the service, the Leadership Council is going to make a presentation. I'm inviting you to stay. It'll be 10, 15 minutes or so, just to get where we are so that collectively we can move forward together. I'm going to invite you to support me as I move forward in my uncomfortableness and new creation. I'm going to invite myself to support you in your discomfort, because what I know is I'm committed to the well-being of this community. I invite you to that same level of commitment. There's others who need to know what we know, and we will be the vessel and the vehicle for that to happen. Just saying. Here's what it takes to create lasting change. Because we can create change out of willpower. And then when we let down our guard, we move right back to our old way of being, right? Because we go back to our subconscious that knows how to do it, project into the future. But lasting change requires being brave. The courage to state when it's not working. The courage to look at ourselves. I know some of you have well-honed stories. You've developed over 30, 40, maybe even 50 years that aren't supporting you. It takes courage to tell a new story that supports you. So I honor you for your bravery. It takes being vulnerable. The persona wants everything to look good. Being vulnerable says, you know what? I've made mistakes. I'm not there yet. I have some ugly emotions from time to time. I do things from time to time that aren't healthy. I'm a human being, like you. Who would you rather hear from? So being vulnerable, again, in supportive, nurturing ways, with people that will support you in knowing your truth, and then create lasting change. Create the vision of your life and work diligently and daily to fulfill that vision. Here's the good news. Spirit would not give you the vision without all that's necessary for its fulfillment. Isn't that cool? Want to pray? Let's start there. I invite you to take a deep breath and release it. That felt so good, I'd invite you to take another deep breath. That felt really good. Let's do one more. Breathing out and just recognizing this one life, this one divine intelligence, this infinite presence that delights in its self-expression. And knowing that this one life, this one power, this one infinite being is always present, always available, I invite you to step into that awareness right now. The fully lived life, the sense of connection with divinity, and recognizing the divine inheritance as one of wholeness, of love, of joy, of beauty, of abundance. And so we accept for ourselves in this moment that wholeness is revealing itself as health, well-being, as vitality, as an energetic shift. We're bearing witness to this presence and power that is love, that is unconditional in its nature, that is pouring itself into existence, that delights in its self-expression through us and as us. And as we joyfully surrender to this divine presence of unconditional love, we find it easy to release that which no longer serves us, to love the entirety of our being, the light and the dark. And we know in this awareness we are healed and transformed through this inner light, through this love. We know that we are abundant beings because we are one with the source and the substance of all that is. So we open our minds and our belief to accept that we live in divine flow, that we joyously give and graciously receive of this entire bounty. I invite you in this moment to simply place your hand over your heart and in your mind anchor in this truth, knowing that Spirit delights in its creation. It delights in you. It delights in its self-expression, and it speaks with love and compassion. In this moment, we have the opportunity to release that which is no longer serving us. And we do so gently, lovingly, easily. And in its place, we accept the fullness of light, of love, of wisdom, of guidance. Breathe into it and give thanks. How good it is to know this truth. How good it is to know we are blessed beyond measure. And so even as we accept this blessing, we extend a blessing. We bless this divine idea, the Center for Spiritual Living, knowing that it is but a divine idea, and therefore it is unfolding in wisdom, in joy, and in peace, and in abundance. We extend that blessing to include all of our brothers and sisters around the planet herself. We're seeing a planet at peace, in harmony with itself. We're seeing a world that works for all. And as is our custom, we simply bless all teachers, ministers, priests and priestesses, rabbis, all leaders of faith. For we know there are many pathways to the divine, and therefore we honor and celebrate them all. In joy and gratitude, then, I'm simply giving thanks that this is so. I'm giving thanks for this law of mind that operates upon the consciousness that we collectively established, bringing it forth in perfect timing and in divine right order. In joy and in gratitude, then, I simply allow it to be so, as together we say, and so it is.